Well, I think the most important is to be really passionate about climbing, because if you are passionate, you don't go training and you don't say to yourself that you go training. You say to yourself that you are just climbing.
Yeah.
And if you are just climbing, you don't feel like you sacrifice something. It's always important to keep the whole process of training like a fun. The last 6 or 7 winters I spent in Catalonia, Spain, which is, of course, a super place to climb with many fantastic cliffs like Siurana, Oliana, Santa Linya. But at the same time, I usually spend the whole weeks on one place. And I was really psyched after the ascent of La Duradura 9B Plus to change the location completely in Spain, and I went down to south to Andalusia, where close from the little town called Jaén I found a very interesting project which could be in the 9B Plus region, and additionally I bolted some 2 new routes which could be quite hard as well, and I see a big potential in this part of the Spain, so I'm coming back there in a couple of weeks, and I don't know, it could be a destination where I will keep coming for the next couple of years, because there is so much to be done more. Well, I like competition because it's a great challenge and something that really keeps me motivating to train hard. But at the same time, it lacks all the other aspects that I liked about climbing. You only go for the competition to fight with the challenge and nothing more. So it's something that I can do for 1 or 2 years, but then I need to relax a little bit and focus on climbing on the rocks. But during last year and this year I haven't done any competitions at all, but to put it into the contrast, next year I will be fully focused on climbing and I will sacrifice my climbing season outdoor for the competition. Well, to be a climber for me is to think about climbing, to live like a climber, and to me it feels you are not only just going to climb some route somewhere for just a certain project, but you are going there just to enjoy the whole trip. And it means that you just, for me, it's, if I say climbing, it's not only just climbing that certain route and having the joy out of sending something. It's also just the driving to there and sleeping usually outdoors or in the van and seeing a sunrise or sunset and having a good time with my friends. To me, climbing is really just almost everything what I do when I'm outside of my city. I think that I'm still quite successful, and I wanted to make it that way. That I'm an individual, and I have a certain style how I want to behave, and I want to keep a low-key profile and to stay normal for my friends. Because if you behave a little different, then the relationships with your friends are on a different level, I would say. So for me, what is important and what is actually also my goals in climbing is to keep progressing, you know, just before every single year, just to set up a certain targets, which are usually the more ambitious than the previous years. And if I fulfill them, I'm happy. But my goal is not to be the best in the climbing. Maybe if I think about it, it's like I must admit that it feels nice. But it's not the most important. For me, it's important that I make the progression. If I don't make the progression and still climbing the best in the world, then I'm not satisfied.
So,
and at the same time, if you only just compare your own achievements, then you have still motivation to get better and better. Whereas if I told myself that I'm the best climber in the world, why would I keep climbing then, or why would I keep training more? Because it would seem that I have no more goals. It is very important to be able to cope with the failure and to deal with the failure in that way that you make it just an additional motivation instead of to have it like something that would dismotivate myself. So, for example, when I was training for the competitions and in the end I did worse than expected or worse than I wished, it was never really something that would dismotivate me completely. Yes, I took 2 years of break from competitions, but even nowadays or the next year I will be even more psyched or really to try hard on the competition and to prove myself that I'm able to be one of the best on the comps. In 5 or 10 years, I think I will be living pretty much the same way. Yeah, in September I would like to start studying university economics, so that might change a little bit something, but I'm hoping that I will still have a plenty of time to travel around and to do what I like, and that's climbing. What I will do in 15 or 20 years, that's something that I can't really answer, but of course, as long as I'll be able to move my hands and feet, I'll be climbing, because climbing is something, and the movement upwards and the feeling of liberty and freedom when I'm climbing, that's something that my mind and my body needs. And I can't really imagine a situation where I wouldn't climb at all. Of course, I might not be training 5 days a week as I'm training now, but still I will climb. There are some certain goals in competitions, of course, that I still haven't managed to fulfill. Whereas on the rocks, it's nice. I don't have any concrete projects, but you know, it's more like following what I see and by what I get inspired. So I don't know what the next goal will be. I just travel around, and if I see something inspiring, I will give it a go into it. But definitely in the further future I would like to go into the more serious mountains as well, as many other climbers did in the past, like Wolfgang Gillich went into Karakoram and created, together with Kurt Albert, Eternal Flame on Nameless Tower, which is inspiring feat for the future generation. And nowadays it was a big goal for the climbers to climb it free. So to do some kind of similar route, still climbing but in the higher altitude, like bringing of what I learned in sport climbing into the serious mountains is something that would be really interesting for me, and at the same time I really love the mountains.